Good morning.
Good morning, Brother B. Are you hearing me now?
Right. Repeat what you said. I wanted to hear
Yeah,
exactly the
no, I
comments that
say,
you just.
did you get your $1 million as that last interviewed person said? He said everybody should get $1 million.
Remember Eric William, the MP for Port of Spain, somewhere there, did say that Trinidad and Tobago have enough oil money that everybody could get $1 million. You remember that?
Yes, yes,
Well,
yes,
and
yes,
after
yes.
that, that was the end of he. Yeah?
That was the end of that. Yes,
All right.
yes,
Okay, let's
yes.
get into it, Mr. George. All right, let's deal with the minimum wage matter straight first and foremost. Increased by $3. Let's talk ripple effect. There are those who are saying that some businesses will not be able to afford to pay some of their employees, and the private sector would feel the most. Should that happen, then we will pay more at maybe in a grocery, for example. Let's speak to that holistically.
Well, the thing is, Brother B, I mean, we have to be fair and we have to be realistic. The cost of living is increasing exponentially, and the persons who feel it most are the ones who are at the lowest end of the earning sector. If you remember, Buju Banton sang about it when he said they're spending the dime and earning the nickel. So in other words, your expenses outweigh what your income is. You go in the supermarket, you go in the grocery, you go in the market, the small shops, you are seeing the price increases almost every day. So therefore, it is clear that there is need for some sort of relief. So, in that regard, Brother B, I mean, even as a business chamber, even though we understand that it's going to be more pressure on our members, we support in principle the idea of giving some sort of greater relief to those who are at, as I say, the lowest end of the earning spectrum. And therefore, if it is that the minimum wage has to be increased by this amount, of course, it presents challenges for business owners, but I would say that certainly it is something that is needed for people who are really struggling to make ends meet.
All right, so let's go to development, which I think is the most contentious of this budget. Obviously, we received 2.584. Recurrent expenditure will take 2.521. And of course, we only have 260 for development, 260 million for development. Mr. George, yesterday people bawl ow. And you know in the Tobago culture, when we say ow, we are embarrassed, so we feel. So, your response.
Yeah, yeah. And that actually is one of my great concerns because you see, if the majority, right, over 88% of what your allocation is earmarked for recurrent expenditure, that means you cannot grow, you cannot build, you cannot develop, right? So, in other words, the THA, I guess, of itself has to now be a bit more creative and innovative in terms of thinking outside the box as to how we in Tobago are going to elevate ourselves out of this quagmire. Because if you recognize the pattern is fairly consistent from government to government, and it doesn't matter whether government change PNM, UNC, whoever, it really doesn't move outside of this type of matrix where the majority of the monies allocated to the Tobago are for simply paying wages and expenses. So, in other words, Brother B, it's like you're just living from month to month. It's like somebody you're just living to pay bills. You're working and living just to pay bills, to go to the next month, just to live and work and pay bills again. You can't do anything more. So therefore, we need to look at other innovative ways. Say, for instance, Brother B, look at Dominica, look at Grenada, look at Barbados, where they have had these offshore medical schools, offshore universities. Why can't Tobago look at something like that in terms of bringing in additional income? If we set up an offshore university here in Tobago, you'll have lots of foreign exchange coming in for starters. So, everybody's complaining about foreign exchange. That's going to be, something to, alleviate that. You'd have lots of income coming in. You'd have lots of people coming in because that's the next thing we have to look at. Our population size is very small. I've had situations, Brother B, where I have asked some business owners, friends of mine, and I said, well, boy, why you don't open, a business in Tobago, to help serve the population in Tobago? And you know what they tell me? They say the population size is too small.
Okay.
When they look at the economies of scale, So we have to start thinking a bit more creatively rather than just waiting every year and stretching our begging bowl and hoping that central government fills it a bit more each time.
Okay, Mr. George, and I want to get back to that point, but I had a question with regards to the proposed extension of the retirement age. I want you to just speak to that briefly because in the current situation, persons who make a minimum of 750 contributions earn a payout of about 3,500 per month from the National Insurance Retirement Benefit. Now, some persons may argue that yes, you work and you offer your services for countless years and you're looking forward to retirement to tap in to that fund. While some are arguing, as a matter of fact, some of the business community are arguing that they're not arguing, but they welcome this proposed extension. What are your takes on this particular issue?
Well, there are two ways to look at it. I mean, we have to understand what is the fundamental driver of this discussion. The fundamental driver of it is the fact that the National Insurance Board has practically run out of money to fund its retirement programs in the years to come. That's the reality, and we need to face that reality squarely. And of course, I also think, along with facing that reality, should be some kinds of questions or investigations as to where has most of that money gone. In other words, National Insurance Board has been responsible for profligate wastage and spending of billions of dollars on all sorts of, follies. So therefore, in other words, the monies which should have been put aside and properly invested for retirement for persons working in the public service has been wasted, squandered, frittered away over the years. And now they are running and crying, foul and saying, well, we can't afford to fund the program. So therefore, here's what, let's delay the retirement age, push it back to 65. So let's understand that's the only thing that has sparked this discussion because they are running out of money and it is because they have wasted billions of dollars over the years.
And what
Let's
about businesses who
understand
fail
that
to pay?
fundamental.
What about businesses who fail to pay?
Well, right. So businesses who fail to pay, that again is the responsibility of the National Insurance Board to ensure your enforcement and collection of these monies. If you understand me, that's your role. If you think of, for instance, the IRS in the USA, they don't make joke with collecting their taxes. They don't make joke with collecting their taxes, but
Yeah,
they
yeah.
find you wherever you are in the world, and they're sending you a notification, and they're saying, "Oops, partners, you need to pay this. If you don't pay it, these are the consequences."
All right.
That's how they function, right? The Inland Revenue Division in Canada, same thing. So, in other words, if the National Insurance Board has been delinquent in its enforcement, and then you look at their records, they are saying that the government agencies are the biggest defaulters in payments. So how come you are now then saying you're running out of money? If the government agencies are your biggest defaulters, then collect your monies from them.
Okay.
So I mean, I have a serious problem with the fundamental issue that has got us to this point in the first place. On another note, we have to understand internationally, persons are living longer, living healthier lives, and stuff like that. So, as a result, you have many countries that have aging populations who they just ain't dying. Let's just face it. People living longer, healthier lives, and therefore that now puts an additional strain on your resources, on your healthcare system, your social services, everything. So,
Okay.
you have an international trend towards increasing the retirement age. So we have to also be in step with the times and understand that, look, it's not just a Trinidad and Tobago problem, right? In fact, in some countries, they've increased it up to 70,
Yeah. And in
and
some
made it
cases,
that way.
there's no retirement age in the United States, for example. All right, but
Right,
let's
that's
yeah.
in some of the
Let's
places
go
there's
now
no
to
retirement.
the business community. The Minister of Finance spoke about 72% of businesses do not have business accounts. The business community or those people who are in business will tell you the difficulty, the pulling teeth to get a business account. Let's speak to that. 72% is very high, Mr. George.
Well, and the point is, I think that that would relate mainly to the small entrepreneurs, and maybe a few of the medium-sized businesses, and it is primarily the fault of the banks. Plain and simple, brother B. It is much easier to open a bank account in the US or Canada than it is to open one in Trinidad and Tobago. In Trinidad and Tobago, the amount of things they ask you for, they put so many hurdles in your way. They keep sending you back, sending you back. They need this additional, they need that, you now open, you now register your business, but yet still they want you to produce 3 years of accounts. Where the hell are you getting 3 years of accounts from?
All right, so Mr. George,
And you
and
explain
all
to
of
them
those,
that you know register the business.
yeah, but all those parameters are to ensure that money laundering and other activities do not
Yeah, I know,
filter
but what I'm
through the
saying is,
banks.
how is it that other countries are able to do it without all this red tape? It has to be that there must be a simpler way. You saw even the central bank governor commented on this issue a couple of weeks ago, where he said that, look, the banks have to find ways to simplify the process because it is just too difficult, brother B.
Yeah.
I rather write an exam in, astronuclear physics than to apply to a bank to open a bank account.
It's that difficult, all right?
It's
Yeah.
that difficult.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and coming back to the point you were making earlier on about capital program, development program, and so on, in terms of prioritizing this figure, because the figure is, I mean, of course, the budget would be debated, but at the moment, this 260 million towards capital development in Tobago, development program in Tobago. How can the THA, in terms of from a business standpoint, really enhance and utilize this funding here and also empower the private sector in such a way to support it for the long run in terms of development in Tobago?
Well, I mean, I guess the only way you could really look at it is probably trying to see if you can leverage some public-private partnerships to see if, persons can, undertake some projects maybe on the bolt principle, or something of the sort, whereby they now do the capital injection up front. Because really and truly, $260 million, it is really a very small sum. When you look at just the roads, I mean, look at this, our main thoroughfare road from the airport coming through Bonaccord, Canaan there. That same road that persons complained about before elections, it is in the same condition or worse. Gotta be. This is the first thing that greets a visitor as they land and they drive in through. I mean, it is ridiculous. We really need to have some proper infrastructural development taking place. Otherwise, we just basically, as I say, living from month to month. All you're doing is living to pay bills. You could never build or grow or develop if that's the case. We
All right.
need to be able to have some sort of leeway to ensure that, look, hey, we could point to some project and say, listen, yes, we've earmarked $500 million. We are going to get this done. This is the cost of it. This is the estimate. This is the workflow. And at least you'll be able to show something for the monies that are allocated.
All right, but let's bring investor revenue earning opportunities into the conversation. You said earlier that there has to be some other way that we can earn instead of going and beg. I did pose that same question to the Chief Secretary. We spoke agriculture, we spoke yellowfin tuna, we spoke aggregate at the quarry. Mr. George, Tobago can earn to sustain itself. Mr. Charles, Charles spoke about collecting taxes and having the taxes be utilized here. How do we, well, of course, we know the internal self-government matter will take care of all of that, but in the interim, what do we do in terms of investment that can yield profit for Tobago?
Gotta be the first thing we need to do is to keep beating the drum for the government to repeal the Foreign Investment Act. That act crippled Tobago. I don't know if people understand how much foreign investment we have lost as a result of that archaic and anachronistic piece of legislation. When that legislation was proposed, I met with the then Chief Secretary, Mr. Orville London, and I told him face to face, I said, Chief, this is not going to achieve the objective you speak about. because they said that it was designed to prevent Tobagonians from selling out their lands. You know, I say all you are going to do is change it from foreigners being able to buy and invest in Tobago, and it's going to now pivot to rich Trinidadians coming across and buying up everything. And that's exactly what has happened. So it hasn't stopped people selling lands or selling property. But the point is, what you have done is you've stopped that direct foreign investment. In other words, you look up the islands, Brother B. Other small islands are rolling out the red carpet for foreign investors. They are making things easy. The company formation, they're facilitating that. They're giving them tax holidays because they recognize the value of that infrastructural development that comes with a large inflow of foreign investment. We are so silly in Trinidad and Tobago that we have designed a legislation to block foreign investment. And yet still, we're crying every day and saying we don't have foreign exchange, we don't have forex, there's a forex shortage. But yet still, the avenue whereby you can have millions, maybe billions of dollars pumped into Tobago through direct foreign investment. You have this legislation that creates this hurdle and this bar and this obstacle to that same investment. Does that ever make sense, Brother B? I have spoken with persons, international companies, international agencies who are willing to invest in Tobago. They have a project, an idea for Tobago, either for green energy or solar, and wind energy, all those things. People want to bring big, big projects, but the point is, if you have things that are blocking that investment, which are creating hurdles for investment, they're going to go elsewhere where it's easier.
Okay.
Who wants to choose the harder way to invest your money when there's an easier alternative in Dominica, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Barbados? All of them are welcoming investors.
Okay.
Okay, and speaking about investment, the Chief Secretary in his budget proposal earlier this year also spoke about investing in youth. Your take, based on what we have to work with in order to invest in youth and to empower not just private sector but the youth within the private sector to take Tobago forward. Some may argue that there's a brain drain situation taking place. A number of the skilled and educated persons opting to apply their trade abroad may not necessarily return, but speak to us from looking at that perspective and bringing it into how...
No, and that is actually a big, big, big problem. And, even many of those who have been beneficiaries of scholarships through the THA, you don't necessarily see all of them coming back and making that contribution. So that creates a problem, that creates a challenge. So we really are facing a brain drain situation. But the reality is that we have to now look at it from different perspectives. When we talk about investing in the youth, we have to change the narrative. Everybody can't be doctor, lawyer, engineer, these traditional, areas. We have to forget about those, Brother B. The world is changing, So therefore, we have to now think in terms of, hey, listen, maybe somebody could be a digital marketing specialist. Somebody could be a social media influencer. Somebody could be doing something like, for instance, sound engineering, if you understand me, right? Somebody could be creating beats, right? So you're creating beats which run on a track, and once you sell that, then various artists will be making the music on that track. We have to think differently, Brother B. We have to think, Mr. Cox, in terms of, how the youth view it, first of all. Because if we come to them with the traditional ways, they are going to reject that because their thinking is not along those lines. So we have so much potential here in Tobago, right? We should start, first of all, by making free internet available to every corner of Tobago. Give free Wi-Fi to everybody. That we should start with as a project of the teacher. And I'll tell you why. Through that, our youths, they are going to find creative, innovative ways to, form a little business, to sell something on Amazon. You wouldn't believe there are Tobagoans who are making products and selling it on Amazon. So the point is we need to open that access, and it is through the digital technological world that Tobago's youth are going to shine. So we need to give them that fullest opportunity, Brother B.
All right. We want to thank you, Mr. George. And indeed, yeah, there's so much that we can do to ensure we earn our own keep, thereby stop going to
Of
and
course.
beg cap in hand. All right. We want to thank you
Yes.
very much, and we'll chat again. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure. Have a great morning. Thank you.